Hello, my name's Lark. At my own startup launch, my parents stood beside me and handed my company to my sister. They said she was better for the spotlight. She said it was always hers. And then, the press believed her. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing this wasn't the first time they'd erased me, just the first time they did it in front of everyone. They took my work, my voice, even my name, and handed it over like it was theirs to give. So, tell me something. How do you fight back when the people who raised you are the ones rewriting your life? The morning of my company's launch, I woke up earlier than usual. Not because I couldn't sleep, but because my brain wouldn't let me. I kept playing over the sequence of events I had spent the last 4 years preparing for. Every pitch, every coding sprint, every sacrifice I made while others partied or traveled. I built this from the ground up, one sleepless night after another. This day was supposed to be the beginning of something bigger. By 7:15 a.m., I was at the event space, an industrial chic co-working venue in East Austin. The team had already started setting up banners and projector screens. I made small talk with a few of our engineers, ran through the keynote slides again, and checked that the demo units were synced and functional. Kale showed up a little after 8 o'clock, coffee in hand, and a smile that seemed genuine. He had always been good at pretending he wasn't nervous. "You ready to own this?" he asked. "I've been ready," I said, meaning every word. By 9 o'clock, guests were arriving, investors in their carefully unbuttoned suits, reporters with notepads and camera crews, curious startup peers. My parents came in closer to 9:30. They waved stiffly. My mother, Elaine, wore a navy blouse she'd pulled out for every important event since my high school graduation. My father, David, gave me a half hug and said, "Big day, huh?" "You must be thrilled." I nodded. I didn't expect warmth, just neutrality would have been enough. The room swelled with chatter as people grabbed coffee and settled in. Kyle took the mic first and welcomed everyone. He gave a brief background on how the startup began and thanked the early backers. I was cued next. I held my note cards, took a breath, and stepped forward. But before I could speak, my father stood up. He didn't ask. He walked onto the small platform, took the second mic, and smiled like a senator preparing for applause. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, looking confident and far too comfortable. "We're incredibly proud of what our daughters have accomplished." "Daughters?" I blinked. He continued. "As this company enters its next chapter, we're excited to introduce a new face of leadership, someone with vision, charisma, and the communication skills to represent our mission." He motioned to Seraphine. My older sister stepped out from the side curtain, waving to the crowd as if she were stepping onto a pageant stage. People clapped. Some even stood up. I froze. "And so," my father said, grinning, "please welcome the new acting CEO of LumaCare, Seraphine Bellamy." The rest of the room faded into white noise. I stood there, still holding my note cards. Kyle gave me a side glance, neutral but unreadable. I managed to speak after the applause died down. My voice trembled, but I held it together. I thanked our team, highlighted our tech, and demoed our core product, while my sister smiled beside me like she'd been here since day one. After the presentation, I stepped outside for air. My hands were shaking. I found my father leaning by the catering table, munching on a mini quiche. "What the hell was that?" I asked. He didn't flinch. "Seraphine is better with people. Investors trust someone who looks the part. I'm the founder." "You're brilliant," he said, "but leadership needs more than brains. It needs presence." Behind him, Seraphine was laughing with a local reporter. She hadn't said a word to me all morning. Later that evening, back at my apartment, I tried to process everything. I figured maybe it was a one-off. Maybe this was just a stunt, a bad call. But then, my phone buzzed, an alert from Austin Startups Weekly. Headline: LumaCare's founder steps down for sisters' leadership. I clicked the link. The article included a press statement. Today, Lark Bellamy, founder and chief engineer of LumaCare, announced her decision to voluntarily transition leadership responsibilities to her sister, Seraphine Bellamy, to support the company's scaling efforts. It had a quote from me. "I'm proud to hand the reins to Seraphine, who brings strategic clarity and a bold new vision for LumaCare's future." I never said that. I never wrote it. But there it was, in black and white, sent to media outlets. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I looked at the sender's metadata. The press release came from a PR agency I didn't recognize. Later, I'd find out Seraphine hired them 2 weeks ago. I refreshed my inbox. New message. Subject: clarifying Lumicare leadership structure. Investor follow-up. They bought the lie. They all did. I sat there, staring at my laptop screen. Not at the article, but at my name. Twisted, rewritten, misused. My stomach churned. My throat tightened. It wasn't the reporters. It wasn't the investors. It was my family who decided I wasn't enough. By the time the sun slipped past the blinds in my bedroom, I had already read the article 3 times. Not because I was confused, just because I couldn't believe someone else had decided who I was going to be in the world that day. There was a small email from the PR firm in my inbox. Please review the attached draft, it said. But there wasn't any attachment, no draft, just a press release that had already gone out, already rewritten who I was, what I stood for, and what I supposedly said. The air in my apartment felt like concrete. I walked to the sink, poured a glass of water, but it tasted like metal. I let it sit on the counter and sat down in front of my laptop again. The website was open. Lumicare's homepage, now sleek, redesigned, glossy. Seraphine's face front and center, her bio 3 paragraphs long. Founder, CEO, visionary. I clicked over to the team page. My name was gone, erased. Not even a footnote. At first, I thought it might be a glitch. I refreshed the browser. Still gone. I grabbed my phone and texted Kale. Me. Did you know they were doing this? 3 little dots danced for longer than they should have. Kale. We need to keep the momentum going. Investors like Seraphine's polish. It's good for us. Us. I locked the screen and dropped the phone next to me. For the next hour, I stared at the wall across from my kitchen island and tried to hear myself think. But all I heard was the echo of Seraphine's voice, so smooth and calculated during the speech. A new ping, Twitter notification. I tapped it open. A clip from the launch was going viral, 30 seconds long. A tight edit of Seraphine smiling, hugging investors, flashing charm at the cameras. Then came my face. A 3-second snippet of me behind her, smiling, smiling. I hadn't even known there were cameras behind us. In the video, it looked like I was nodding, smiling, approving. Then came her voiceover. My sister believes in my leadership. She always has. She's brilliant in the lab. I'm the one who takes it out into the world. The comments were gushing. Such a graceful handoff between sisters. This is what women supporting women looks like. She's so humble, stepping aside. No one knew what had actually happened. I tapped into Instagram. Seraphine's story was a photo of her clinking champagne glasses with the caption, "The journey begins. Thank you for trusting me with this mission, Lark." I froze. Not angry, just suspended. I opened Slack. The general channel was exploding. Team members sharing the same video, praising her, resharing investor praise. A pinned message from the new PR rep. Town Hall with CEO Seraphine this Friday. Let's celebrate our momentum. My inbox chimed again. Subject: interview request, Austin Business Radio. The body of the email started with, "We'd love to talk about your decision to empower your sister's leadership and the incredible example it sets for women in tech." I closed my laptop. It wasn't even noon yet. I curled into the corner of my couch, my arms folded tight, waiting to feel something. I thought maybe the grief would come like a wave, or the rage would fire through my veins, but neither arrived. Just silence. Later that evening, I made myself a grilled cheese I didn't eat. I sat with it on the plate, untouched, while the television played a rerun of a medical drama in the background. I wasn't watching it. I wasn't watching anything. My brain was stuck between yesterday and every time in my life someone had made a decision about me without asking. My phone buzzed again. A text from my mom. "So proud of how you handled last night. You showed real class." I read it twice. Real class, like I had been part of some staged transition, like I had known, like I had agreed. I didn't reply. I didn't throw the phone either. I just let it slide off my thigh and hit the floor, face down. Sleep didn't come that night. My body lay still, but my mind kept building alternate timelines. What if I had stopped my dad at the mic? What if I had grabbed the press release before it went out? What if I had said, "That's not true," into the camera? What if I had fought back in real time? The next morning, I woke up and showered in silence. I pulled on a blazer without checking if it was pressed. The coffee I made tasted burnt, but I drank it anyway. Some habits die slow. At 9:05 a.m., I stood in front of my own building, LumaCare's headquarters. The glass doors still had the old decal, but inside I could already see the transformation. The lobby desk was covered with pink and teal floral arrangements. A new sign was already up behind reception. "Welcome to Seraphine Solutions." The receptionist, who used to greet me with, "Hey boss," smiled too sweetly. "Hi, Lark," she said. "Didn't know you'd be in today." "Yeah," I replied. "Neither did I." I walked past her without stopping, straight toward my old office. The nameplate was gone. The door was open. Inside, the desk had been cleared. A vase with lilies sat where my models used to be. My laptop was gone. My whiteboard wiped clean. I didn't sit. I didn't cry. I just stood there and watched a team member walk past the doorway, glance in, then look away fast, as if I were the ghost in a place I had built. The rest of the day slipped by like fog, thick, slow, heavy. I left the office not long after I saw my name had been scrubbed from the door. I didn't pack anything. There wasn't anything left that still belonged to me anyway. Once I got back to my apartment, I closed the blinds, silenced my phone, and sat in the dark for hours. Not doing anything, not crying, just breathing. There's something about silence that can either calm you or crack you open. For me, that day, it did both. I didn't return to the office the next morning, or the morning after that. I didn't check Slack. I didn't respond to emails. I didn't look at the group chat with my product team where they were probably planning more polished celebrations for Seraphine's sudden rise. I just let the world move around me like I wasn't in it. At some point, I ordered takeout and barely touched it. I lived on leftover pasta and microwave oatmeal. My apartment started to feel like it was shrinking, the walls inching in a little more each night. And still, I couldn't move. It wasn't until day 3 that something shifted. I was scrolling through my phone, aimlessly tapping between apps like muscle memory, when I landed on a local tech news article. There it was, a photo of the founding team of LumaCare. Seraphine stood in the center, arms confidently crossed. Kyle was next to her, smiling like he belonged there. On the right were 2 other execs we'd hired recently, people I had personally interviewed, and then, nothing. I wasn't there, not faded in the back, not cut off at the side, just completely gone, not even a caption mention, not even a former founder. It was as if I had never existed. My thumb froze on the screen. The last time I felt that invisible, I was 16. That memory didn't come in gently. It slammed into me. We were in the high school gymnasium, folding chairs lined up in crooked rows. I'd spent the past 6 months working on my science fair project, diving deep into a medical tech prototype that would later inspire the foundation of LumaCare. Back then, I was just a kid with a sketchbook, scavenged circuit boards, and a vision. I'd won. I'd been selected for the statewide science competition. But when the form came to list the name of the participant, my parents said Seraphine's name looked better for college applications. "She needs it more," Mom had said. I had looked at Dad for help. He just said, "Be a team player, sweetheart. You're good at building. Let her handle the talking." So, Seraphine stood on that stage and accepted the trophy. I stood in the second row, clapping like a backup dancer in my own life. Afterward, I asked Seraphine why she didn't say anything. She shrugged. "They'll remember the family name, not the details." Back in the present, I dropped the phone onto the couch cushion beside me. My hand trembled, but not from fear. Not this time. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry. I was awake. They didn't just start rewriting me this week. They'd been doing it my entire life. They'd erased me at 16 and now again at 34, and I let them. I stood up and walked to the bookshelf near my window. On the bottom shelf was a dusty file box labeled college grants. I pulled it out and rifled through until I found the old science fair certificate. My name wasn't on the front. Seraphine's was, but in the back corner, handwritten in pencil, was my initial code for the prototype, LHB V1. I knew what I had to do. I went to my desk and pulled out the original pitch deck for LumaCare. The first one, the one I created before KL even joined. It was dated, signed, time-stamped, and still carried my old university email address. They could fake articles, they could scrub websites, but they couldn't erase files. They couldn't change digital fingerprints. They couldn't take that from me. That afternoon, I logged into Slack, not to join the conversation, but to observe. The general channel was buzzing. Loved the CEO Spotlight article. Such a powerhouse moment for Seraphine. She's redefining leadership. Redefining leadership or hijacking legacy? A pinned message flashed at the top of the screen. CEO Town Hall with Seraphine, Friday at 3 p.m. Come with questions. I closed the tab. I wasn't going to that meeting. I had a different kind of preparation to do. I opened my notes app and started typing. Dates, file names, prototype stages, every detail that proved who I was and what I had built. Then I took a deep breath and opened a new document. At the top, I typed, IP ownership, proof of origin. This wasn't just for me anymore. This was to remind them and everyone else who built this from nothing. That evening, I poured a glass of wine, sat at my desk, and stared at the growing document in front of me. My chest was tight, but for the first time in days, it wasn't from despair. It was determination. They had erased me before, but not this time. By the time the coffee in my mug had gone cold, I was already halfway through the third page of notes. Handwritten, highlighted, labeled. Every detail I could remember from LumaCare's inception until the moment they swapped my name for Seraphine's was now cataloged in black ink. I hadn't planned on doing it that way. I'd opened my laptop to organize the files digitally, but something in me needed to see it on paper, to physically touch the timeline they tried to distort. So I printed out the original documentation, the first email I sent KL about the concept, the handwritten sketches I scanned from my lab notebook, the beta test logs under my login credentials, dates, IP addresses, screenshots, receipts. This wasn't just emotional therapy, it was preparation. I opened my inbox, searching for anything out of place. That's when I saw the email. Subject line, confidential heads up, please read. It came from Jenna McGowan, our former in-house legal counsel. She left 3 months ago after being replaced by Seraphine's hand-picked attorney, a guy who wore more cologne than a high school prom. I clicked it open. Lark, I don't want to get in the middle of anything, but I felt like you deserved to know. Yesterday, I was forwarded a draft of updated IP documentation. It lists Seraphine as a co-creator of the platform. They're backdating contracts. I don't know what's been finalized yet, but you should prepare. Jenna. I stared at the screen for a long time. They were altering legal records now, crossing a line that didn't just blur truth, it rewrote it. My instinct was to delete the message, just get rid of it and go back to pretending I could outpace the damage, but I didn't. I forwarded it to a private folder and flagged it. Then I sat there and thought about whether I had the stomach to keep fighting. It wasn't just the lies or the betrayal, it was the scale of it, the machinery. The silence from KL, the compliance from the team, my parents pretending this was some beautiful passing of the torch. But right when I started to feel that weight again, another ping. This time it was a text. Lark, I watched your pitch at the Capital Summit in 22. You had fire, vision. Don't let them bury that. Eugene Carver. I blinked. Eugene was a minor investor, one of the earliest. He had put in just $15K, barely enough to keep our cloud services paid for 6 weeks. But he believed in me, showed up to calls, sent feedback on our beta, never asked for anything in return. I hadn't heard from him in months. I reread the message and smiled, not big, but just enough to push the fog off. They could fake contracts, they could spin media, but they couldn't erase memory. Not everyone bought the show. I reopened my laptop and pulled up the file named LumaCare Original Build V1. I began annotating each phase of the tech architecture. I didn't just want to defend myself. I wanted to be undeniable. Over the next few hours, I created a color-coded timeline of every development milestone, source file, prototype submission, and investor correspondence. I cross-referenced timestamps with Git logs and email threads. I created a spreadsheet labeled Claim versus Fact. I even found the old slide deck I presented to Jenna and Kale when we first formed the LLC. My voice cracked when I played the recording of that meeting. It was me, explaining the vision, walking through the pain points we were solving, with a kind of clarity and confidence I barely recognize now. It was still me. It had always been me. By sunset, my apartment looked like a crime scene of whiteboards and sticky notes. I took a picture of the wall and labeled it Reclamation. Then I took a break. Downstairs, the coffee shop on the corner was still open. I slipped on a hoodie, grabbed my notepad, and walked there with a quiet calm I hadn't felt in days. I ordered a small black coffee, no room for cream, and sat by the window. The place was half empty. A couple of grad students hovered over their laptops, murmuring about finals. The barista nodded politely at me, not knowing I was at war with my own bloodline. I opened my notebook again and wrote one sentence across the top. If they want to make it public, I'll make sure the truth is too. That night, I slept, not for long, but for real. I left the coffee shop just as dusk began to settle in over East Austin. The sky was bruised pink and gray, the kind of soft backdrop that didn't match the hard resolve tightening in my chest. As I crossed the street toward my apartment, I mentally ran through the checklist. Confirm IP files, prep the live stream overlay, charge all devices, and make sure the flash drive was ready, just in case someone decided to play dirty. Inside, I moved like I was preparing for war, but quieter. I wasn't throwing punches, I was placing chess pieces. I laid out my laptop, opened the backup software, and uploaded a copy of everything I had collected. Prototype diagrams, product specs, time-stamped Slack threads, emails between me and our first engineer, the LLC paperwork with my signature front and center. All of it was cataloged, labeled, and encrypted in triplicate. By Thursday night, I had drafted what I'd say. Not a script, just bullet points. I didn't want to sound rehearsed. I wanted to sound real. Friday came quickly. By noon, the startup office was unrecognizable. Someone had swapped the original signage with new posters that read Seraphine Vision, Leading Forward. There were professional lighting rigs near the windows, tall vases filled with pale roses, and a catering spread that looked like it belonged at a corporate gala, not a tech company town hall. I slipped in through the back entrance just before 2 o'clock, head down, hoodie up. My laptop was tucked in my tote, the flash drive clipped inside a zippered pocket. Kyle was near the food table, pretending to care about conversation. When he spotted me, he looked away so fast it was almost theatrical. By 2:50, the chairs had filled with staff and a few external stakeholders. Cameras were positioned near the front row. Someone from the new PR team held a clipboard and nodded as Seraphine stepped onto the small platform near reception. She wore white, again. A power dress, cinched at the waist, paired with a smile so perfectly tuned it felt like she'd practiced it in the mirror all morning. "Welcome, everyone," she began, her voice warm, smooth. "I'm incredibly excited to talk about where we're going and how far we've come." There was a pause, followed by polite clapping. "Innovation," she continued, "isn't just about the technology, it's about leadership, vision. People who can translate complex systems into solutions for everyday lives. That's what we do here, and while I didn't build the code, my sister did, I shaped the message, I shaped the path, and with your continued support, I'll lead us into the next phase of growth." My fingers tightened around the edge of my seat. She had turned it into a collaboration narrative. The PR spin was clear. She built, I led. I waited until the QA section started. One of the younger engineers raised her hand and asked about product timelines. Seraphine answered fluidly, name-dropping release windows and integration lingo she clearly didn't understand. Then I stood up. "I have a question," I said. The room shifted. Some people looked relieved. Others, like Kale, looked like they were about to vomit. Seraphine's smile faltered, but only for a second. "Of course," she said. "Lark, please." I walked to the front of the room, not looking at her. "This isn't about product updates," I began. "It's about truth and ownership." I opened my laptop, already connected to the conference room's auxiliary screen. My desktop appeared on the main projector behind me. I pulled up the file. LumaCare Origin Timeline. "I won't be long. I just want to clear something up for the record." The screen filled with dated logs, GitHub commits, investor pitch decks, all with my credentials. "This company wasn't co-created," I said evenly. "It was built, every wireframe, every test, under my name. The tech you're profiting from now began as a prototype I started in my kitchen 3 years ago. That's not speculation, that's fact." I paused. "And because things have been so conveniently rewritten lately, I've taken the liberty of backing up every shred of that evidence. It's currently stored on an encrypted blockchain server, and a legal team has been retained." I clicked to the final slide. A watermark in the corner showed my full name, time-stamped 6 months before Seraphine ever joined the team. I looked at the room. "I'm not asking for applause. I'm not asking for a title. I just want it known. You're not following a visionary. You're following someone who took credit." There was a beat of silence, and then I ended the connection. But I wasn't finished. I walked over to the corner of the room, turned on my laptop's webcam, and started a live stream. "To anyone watching online," I said, "this is my only statement. What I've shown here today is the truth. No embellishments, no edits. I built LumaCare, I gave it everything I had, and I will not allow my voice to be used as a prop in someone else's PR narrative." My heart thudded. My voice didn't shake. After a few more words, I ended the stream and closed the laptop. No one clapped. No one booed. They just watched. Later that night, back in my apartment, the video had already hit 12,000 views. Dozens of comments flooded in, some skeptical, many supportive. "She's the real deal." Finally, someone speaks up against the spin. About time someone exposed the politics inside startups. I refreshed the page again, then leaned back in my chair. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "You humiliated your sister. She's trying her best. Why can't you just support her like we support you?" I didn't respond. I didn't even finish reading it. I deleted it, turned the phone face down, and exhaled. They wanted a story. I gave them one, and I wasn't done yet. That night, after I closed my laptop and silenced my phone, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because anything was over, not because closure had arrived neatly wrapped in ribbon, but because something had finally begun. I had stopped making space for the lie. I dragged it into the daylight, stripped of its polish and pleasantries, and now it was twitching, exposed. It turns out that there's a strange peace in calling something by its true name. Saturday arrived gray and sticky with humidity. The air was heavy, like it didn't want to settle on anything. I stood in my kitchen, hair twisted back into a loose bun, pulled on a pair of jeans that hadn't seen daylight in months, and reached for a rust-colored sweater that once made me feel like fire, warm, necessary, quietly burning. No makeup, just clean skin and clarity. I headed downtown to meet Jenna and Evan Shaw, the IP attorneys she'd recommended. We had agreed on neutral ground, an office suite off 5th Street with frosted windows, no company signage, and not a single plant or coffee station to pretend it cared whether you felt comfortable or not. Jenna was already waiting when I arrived. Same look, tight ponytail, black turtleneck, no earrings, no apologies. She stood and shook my hand like we were strangers but allies. "Thanks for not deleting my email," she said. I gave a small nod. "Thanks for sending it." Evan Shaw joined us moments later. Mid-30s, maybe younger, with dark-rimmed glasses and a presence that filled the room without trying to. He didn't smile much, just offered a firm greeting and got to work. He pulled up a copy of the revised trademark filings on his laptop. "It's official," he said, turning the screen toward me. "Filed 2 weeks ago. It lists Seraphine Bellamy as co-creator, CEO-founder on every category. Branding, product identity, even the tagline you wrote last spring. I didn't blink. I clenched my jaw instead. Jenna leaned in. They're betting on two outcomes, that you walk away quietly or that you come out swinging and make yourself look unhinged. Either path gives them an easy narrative. Evan tapped the screen. But here's the thing. They don't have product control. You still own the original codebase, Lark, the architecture, the entire foundational source. Unless you handed over IP rights explicitly in writing, and you didn't, they've got branding, not ownership. The words settled in my chest like ballast, not buoyant, but grounding. I exhaled, sat back in my chair. So if I go to court? I asked. Evan shrugged, calm. They'll try to spin it, but if you bring receipts and keep it unemotional, you have leverage. You don't need drama, you need documentation. Jenna added, they're expecting silence. You give them evidence. By the time I left the office, the gray sky felt sharper, less like fog, more like oxygen. I spent the rest of the afternoon organizing files, again, but this time it wasn't about soothing myself or proving my worth to a mirror. It was strategic, positional, a setup for the long game. Sunday, I drafted the cease and desist letter. Monday morning, it went out. Certified mail, physical and digital copies, sent to the company's legal team, their PR firm, and directly to Seraphine. Subject line, immediate halt of use of protected intellectual property and personal identity. Attached, screenshots of early Slack conversations, timestamps, back-end logs, draft files, the original UI wireframes in my design language, patent references, chat transcripts, legal breakdowns, plain English. Nothing emotional, just truth. I uploaded a video too. No cuts, no dramatic lighting, just me in a chair, in a quiet room, with natural light and a calm expression. I looked into the camera and said, "Hi, I'm Lark Bellamy. This message is for the LumaCare team, for the public, and for anyone wondering what's really happening." Then I told the story. I walked viewers through the timeline, how I developed the product in the early stages, how the prototype was built from my original codebase, how Seraphine hadn't joined until after the first beta test. I laid out the facts, clean, unflinching. I ended the video with a quiet, measured sentence. I didn't lose control. I just stopped giving it away. By noon, the video had already started to spread. Tech blogs picked it up first. TechCrunch, Wired, a handful of Medium pieces written by ex-founders and anonymous startup insiders. A popular YouTube commentator who covered VC culture posted a reaction within hours. By 3 p.m., #stolen startup was trending locally on Twitter. Most of the tweets weren't gentle. She built the product and they handed it to her sister because she had better optics. What kind of dystopian nepotism is this? Reminder, charisma isn't leadership, execution is. Austin's tech scene just exposed itself. Again. The silence from Seraphine's camp lasted a day and a half. Then, Tuesday evening, her Instagram story popped up. White background, cursive overlay. Some people bite the hand that feeds them. No name mentioned, no direct statement, just enough ambiguity to keep her fan base loyal, and just enough venom to make the target clear. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. She thought she fed me. I built the kitchen. Later that night, I refreshed the comments on my video again and again. Messages from strangers, from early beta users, from colleagues who hadn't spoken to me in months. Some apologized for staying quiet. Some said they finally understood. A few venture capitalists I hadn't spoken to since Series A reached out asking if I had something new in the pipeline. I did, of course, but I didn't tell them yet. What I said instead, on camera, at the end of the week, was this: "You want to talk about who built the table?" And with that, I started filming the next piece, the one that didn't defend the past, the one that would build the future. The words played on loop in my head as I stared into the blank screen of my laptop. Not just a phrase, but a declaration, a line drawn across the table I'd built with my bare hands. Let's talk about who built the table. 2 days later, Seraphine decided to host a party. Not just any party, a branded campaign launch inside the LumaCare office, my office. I found out the way everyone else did, through stories on Instagram, brushed filters, clinking glasses, LED signs with catchphrases like #VisionSisters and leading her way. A photo booth stood where the prototype used to sit. The tech wall I'd coded from scratch was now a backdrop for smiling influencers. Even Kale was there, his arm draped casually around Seraphine's shoulder in one of the pictures. She was laughing, head tilted just right, hair curled to perfection. Beneath it, the caption read, "This is just the beginning." That one hit differently. I didn't cry, I didn't text him, I didn't rage on a group chat. I just clicked save on every single photo. Because if there's one thing I've learned in this business, it's that memory fades fast, but screenshots don't. Then came the Reddit post. Title: Hot Mic at the Vision Sisters Party. The post featured a short audio clip. You could hear the chime of a glass in the background, some crowd chatter, then Seraphine's voice, clear, a little tipsy, unmistakably smug. "She just codes, I do the talking. Everyone knows that's what matters." For a few seconds there was silence, even on the recording. Then the voice of a woman near her, probably a guest or an assistant, softly laughed and replied, "Well, you're definitely the face of it." The clip blew up in under an hour. TikTok creators stitched it with my original live stream. The hashtags, #SheJustCodes and #StolenStartup started trending by nightfall. One comment read, "So basically, her sister built the house, and Seraphine just picked the curtains." Another said, "Imagine being that comfortable stealing credit in public." A few media sites even reached out to confirm if the audio was authentic. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The internet had done what it does best, pulling receipts and demanding accountability. My LinkedIn inbox exploded. People I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me, former classmates, ex-coworkers, even a professor from UT. Support poured in, quietly and loudly, but still, nothing from Seraphine. Instead, her team doubled down. Posted polished reels of the party, careful to exclude any candid moments. The caption, "Cheers to strong women building bold futures." I sat in silence, letting the irony simmer. The next day was the Austin Startup Forum, an event both of us had been confirmed for months earlier. I debated backing out, but then I realized I had no reason to hide. The event was held at the Civic Auditorium downtown. Neutral ground, polished, predictable. The panel topic was Building Inclusive Innovation. Cute. I wore a black blazer, no logos, no fluff. When I walked in, Kyle was already seated on the panel bench. He caught my eye for half a second, then looked away like he'd seen something sharp. Seraphine was late, naturally. She swept in 10 minutes before the start, wearing a tailored jumpsuit and oversized sunglasses she didn't take off until she was seated. The moderator kicked things off with a few softball questions. What does innovation mean to you? And how has leadership evolved in the digital age? I answered honestly, thoughtfully, no shade, just substance. When Seraphine spoke, she pivoted to generalities, words like synergy, disruption, and alignment. It sounded like something she'd lifted from a branding deck. Then came the question from the audience. In your current role, what part of the product do you personally manage? I turned slightly in my seat. Seraphine smiled. Leadership is about empowering others to do what they do best. I trust our technical team entirely. Someone followed up. Did you ever write any part of the original product code? She paused. It wasn't long, maybe a beat too long. Then came her smile again. I was focused on vision from the start. My sister handled the technical side. She said my name like it was a prop, not a person. After the panel ended, we stepped off stage. Reporters crowded in, some polite, others pushy. As we passed each other near the hallway, one leaned in and asked Seraphine, "Would you describe yourself as the product's original innovator?" She didn't answer. I kept walking, but as I passed her shoulder, I said under my breath, "Truth always has better timing." She didn't follow. She didn't need to. The story had already left her behind. The morning of the Health Tech Showcase arrived like the eye of a storm, calm on the surface, but pulsing with tension underneath. The air was too still, like it had paused in anticipation. My thoughts moved slowly, intentionally, avoiding panic by locking onto the next actionable thing. I woke before the alarm. No dreams, no nightmares, just a kind of deep-bellied readiness that I couldn't shake. I brewed my coffee the same way I had for the past 10 days. 2 scoops, no sugar, slow pour. I didn't scroll. I didn't read headlines. I just stood by the kitchen window and watched the light shift across the tiles on the floor. Morning was moving forward. So was I. When it came time to dress, I chose deliberately. Not a power outfit, no dramatic silhouettes, no heels to signal anything performative, just tailored charcoal slacks, a navy blouse, and a cardigan with sleeves I could push up to the elbow. Clean lines, no distractions. Just me. Arriving on my own terms. By 10 a.m., I was backstage at the Austin Convention Center, going through my presentation with the tech crew. I double-checked the HDMI cable, confirmed the slide remote, resynced the embedded video, walked through the backup thumb drive, twice. Then I handed the event manager a folded piece of paper. "My final speaker bio," I said. "This is the one I want read." He scanned it. "Got it. You want it to say founder and lead engineer, right?" "Exactly that," I replied, offering a smile I held steady. 10 minutes later, I was standing at the edge of the stage, just beyond the curtain. One speaker ahead of me, she was giving a solid presentation on wearable glucose monitoring. Normally, I would have taken notes, nodded along, even complimented her afterward. But my mind wasn't listening. My fingertips rested on the podium's edge, tracing the grain of the wood. I wasn't nervous. I was focused. Then I heard my name. "And next," the MC said, "we welcome Lark Bellamy, founder and lead engineer of the platform you'll see demonstrated today." Polite applause, nothing over the top. Just the kind of professional acknowledgement you get when you finally earned a space you were once denied. I stepped onto the stage. Even footing, shoulders relaxed, chin steady. I didn't start right away. I let the room settle, let the light find me, let the hush sink in deep enough to carry weight. Then I began. "Some of you may have heard a different version of this story," I said, my voice calm but deliberate. "A version that edits people out, rewrites timelines, and replaces contribution with charisma." I looked out at the audience, letting that land. I'm not here to argue with that version. I'm here to show you what actually happened, and how. Behind me, the screen came alive. Slide 1, a scan of the earliest prototype sketch, handwritten in my college lab notebook. Time-stamped, dated, labeled in pen with the working name that predated everything. The lines were shaky, the scan a little blurred, but it was mine. Slide 2, the LLC formation documents. My name, my signature, notarized. Slide 3, a screen recording of the first GitHub commit, the original codebase, my ID. The commit message, initial health logic framework, start of something bigger. I walked them through each stage. The early nights, the iterations, the first patient model simulation, the adaptive interface, the predictive algorithm that would become the product's core. All of it, mine, not metaphorically, not spiritually, legally, practically, proven. Then I looked straight ahead. Today, I'm formally resigning from my position at LumaCare. A ripple moved across the room. But the intellectual property, the code, the architecture, the design language, the algorithmic logic, that's still mine. Not in a sentimental way, not in a contested way, in a documented, filed, verifiable way. I paused. You've just seen the receipts. No drama, just silence, that beautiful weighted kind of quiet. The one that means the room is actually listening. I ended with a black slide, one line, center justified, white text. Innovation begins with integrity. Then I stepped off the stage. No bow, no looking back. Reporters clustered near the hallway, their phones half raised, questions whispered urgently into mics. I walked past them, not rudely, just firmly. I didn't owe sound bites. Outside, the Austin sun had broken through the gray. Warm, honest, uncomplicated. Seraphine never came. Her rep sent a note to the organizers that morning. Due to unforeseen personal circumstances, Miss Bellamy will not be attending the showcase. The press didn't miss her. They pivoted. That evening, one headline read, "The mind behind the tech finally speaks and shuts the door." That night, as I sat on my couch with my shoes still on, sipping lukewarm coffee I didn't remember brewing, an email pinged. Subject line, "Congratulations, you've been selected." It was from the Austin Tech Council. Female Tech Innovator of the Year. Ceremony at 8 p.m. No speech required. I stared at it for a long time. I hadn't told anyone I was attending. No entourage, no team, no stylist or press contact. Just me and the invitation. But I went. I walked into the banquet hall alone, 10 minutes before the program began. No one noticed me at first. I found my assigned table near the back, sat, folded my hands. The ceremony moved quickly. Applause, name after name. Some winners cried. Others brought partners on stage. When my name was called, I stood and walked to the stage. No spotlight, just a quiet queue. No roaring crowd, just polite clapping. No family in the front row. No proud parents. No childhood best friend beaming from the sidelines. Just me. And the moment that finally belonged to me. I accepted the award, gave a nod, thanked the presenter with a steady hand. Then I returned to my table and finished my water. When the event ended, I slipped out through a side hallway. No red carpet poses, no photo booth, no staged shots of me holding the plaque with perfect teeth and marketing-friendly quotes, just the dark city sky, a breath of wind. A quiet drive home. At home, I placed the award on the bookshelf, right next to an old faded science fair ribbon from high school, the one that had never been labeled with my name because Seraphine had entered the project late and claimed it as hers. I was 13, she was 17. That was the first time I learned the weight of someone else's spotlight. Now, the two sat side by side, one stolen, one earned. I ran my fingers along the edge of the plaque. It was smooth, cold, real. I let out a long breath. Then, to the empty room, I whispered, "Next time, they won't erase me." The new office didn't have much. A shared space above a coffee roaster in East Austin, the kind of building with exposed brick, humming air vents, and too many stairs. But it had quiet, it had sunlight, and for once, everything inside it was mine. I didn't bother decorating. Just a small desk, a whiteboard, and 2 folding chairs. On Monday mornings, those chairs were filled by Aisha and Kim, 2 junior engineers fresh out of UT who reminded me a little too much of myself at 22. Smart, blunt, capable. I gave them code challenges and client prototypes and let them fail in private, not in public. They didn't need to know the weight of being erased before they even got to write their names. By the 3rd week, they were pushing features faster than I could test them. That was the point. One afternoon, I brought in tacos and told them both we'd be launching a microservice under a new brand. No big fanfare, no splashy PR, just a tool that worked and a homepage that didn't need a face. They nodded, chewing carne asada and typing mid-bite. That's what building was supposed to feel like. The same day, while reviewing pull requests, I noticed a voicemail notification blinking on my phone. I didn't check it right away. I let it sit there. I didn't recognize the number, but I had a feeling. It buzzed again after dinner. Alone in my kitchen, I finally listened. "Hi, sweetheart," my mother's voice said. "I'm just calling to say, well, your sister isn't doing great. She's really hurting, Lark. I know this has all gone off the rails, and maybe none of us handled it right, but I just hope, before we all get too old or too bitter, you two can find your way back. Families don't stay broken forever. They just forget how to fix things." I didn't delete it right away. I listened again. Her tone wasn't angry. It was tired, like someone calling from the end of a long hallway, unsure if I'd even hear her. But she still hadn't said the words that mattered. Not once. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "We were wrong." Not even, "You deserved better." Just, "Your sister's hurting." I clicked delete. The next morning, I got an email from Kyle. Subject line, "If I could do it again." The body, "I'd stand beside you." That was it. Nothing else. No explanation. No excuse. I didn't reply. Not out of spite, just because I didn't need anything else from him. Some stories don't deserve sequels. Seraphine stayed quiet. No messages. No texts. Not even a public post about moving forward. But a week later, a friend forwarded me an article from a startup newsletter. Former CEO ousted from consumer health brand amidst leadership overhaul. There was no mention of her name in the piece, but the timing was too neat. The dots weren't hard to connect. She moved on, I muttered under my breath, sipping coffee. So did I. A few days later, I opened an old box from the back of my closet. It was filled with things I hadn't touched in years. College notebooks, half-finished journals, early prototypes drawn in blue ink on yellow legal pads. Tucked in the middle was my high school science fair notebook. I flipped it open, slow, like peeling off a bandage that had stuck to scarred skin. The page with my project title was still torn. My name, which had been erased from the final submission years ago, had left a ghost print in pencil smudge. I looked at that space, at everything that had been stripped out of it, and then reached for a sheet of paper from my printer tray. It was a copy of the patent I had filed 6 months ago. Full name, full code reference, full ownership. I taped it to the opposite page, past and present, proof and wound, side by side. That evening, I walked downtown. It was one of those soft Austin nights where the breeze was warm and traffic hummed just enough to keep the silence from feeling lonely. As I passed through South Congress, a giant billboard caught my eye. LumaCare, still using the logo I had designed, still using the color palette I chose in a rush, one sleepless weekend. But the tagline had changed, no longer care personalized. Now it read, Leadership for Tomorrow. I stood there for a second, letting the irony wash over me. Then I kept walking. I didn't take a picture. I didn't send it to anyone. I just whispered to myself as I crossed the street. I walked away, but I took my name with me. Sometimes the people who claim to love us the most are the ones who silence us the fastest. But silence doesn't mean surrender. Lark's story reminds us that reclaiming your truth, no matter how late, is a form of justice. What about you? Have you ever had to fight for something that was yours from the start? If stories like this resonate with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful family stories that uncover what's hidden behind closed doors.